What if I told you that the systems shaping our world, capitalism and socialism, have never worked the way you were taught? That every empire, every revolution, every economic boom and bust was just a part of the same century-long experiment? The fight between capitalism and socialism is one of the longest, loudest debates in modern history. It survived revolutions, toppled empires, bankrupted superpowers, and split the world in two. But here's the truth that no textbook or influencer will tell you. Neither system ever worked perfectly. Not once. Not anywhere. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Long before anyone uttered the words capitalism or socialism, there was no real economy, only survival. Monarchs claimed divine right. Landlords owned nearly everything. Peasants produced just enough to avoid starvation. Life was a zero-sum game. If someone rose, someone else fell. Wealth came from land, labor, and war. Productivity barely grew. Then the Industrial Revolution exploded across Britain in the late 1700s. Machines replaced muscle. Factories replaced workshops, and private capital emerged as a new kind of power. For the first time, individuals could invest, take risks, and own on a scale once reserved for kings. Productivity soared. Wages rose for some, misery deepened for others, inequality exploded. Cities choked on smoke. Children worked 12-hour shifts. Slums bred disease. Yet one thing was undeniable. Capitalism created more goods, more wealth, more speed than the world had ever seen. And that brutality birthed socialism. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels saw a world of exploitation disguised as opportunity. They imagined a system where workers collectively owned factories. Profits were shared, and production served human needs, equality, justice, dignity. To millions crushed under the gears of early capitalism, it sounded like salvation. Theory is one thing, reality is another. After the 1917 Russian Revolution, Lenin inherited a starving, backward empire of 150 million people. The Tsar was dead. The elite had fled or been executed. The Soviets attempted a bold experiment. State ownership of land, factories, banks, and resources. Prices were set by bureaucrats. Private business was wiped out. On paper, it promised equality and efficiency. In practice, it produced chaos. Factories stopped innovating. Agriculture collapsed. Shortages became normal. Queues became culture. Famine spread. Lenin had to allow limited private trade just to keep the country alive, yet socialism remained seductive. Why? Because raw capitalism at the same time wasn't exactly looking good either. By the early 20th century, capitalism delivered unprecedented growth, but also unprecedented instability. Speculation ran wild. Trusts dominated industries. The wealthy lived like royalty, while millions struggled to survive. In 1929, the system exploded. The U.S. stock market collapsed. Banks failed. Unemployment hit 25%. Entire nations saw their financial systems wiped out. The Great Depression wasn't a recession. It was a global economic heart attack. Capitalism no longer looked flawed. It looked lethal. By the 1930s, the world faced a brutal truth. Neither system delivered what it promised. Socialism offered equality, but created scarcity. Capitalism promised prosperity, but sometimes delivered catastrophe. Then came World War II, the ultimate stress test. The Soviet Union, despite inefficiencies, mobilized millions with terrifying speed. State control allowed it to redirect resources toward survival. Meanwhile, capitalist nations like the United States became industrial supermachines, proving the power of private innovation when backed by national coordination. When the war ended, the scoreboard wasn't ideological. It was GDP, infrastructure, growth, and living standards. From 1945 to 1991, the world became a laboratory. The Soviet bloc, central planning. State control, suppressed markets versus the U.S. and allies, regulated capitalism with social safety nets. The results were dramatic. The USSR industrialized rapidly. Illiteracy fell. Housing expanded. Military power soared. Yet the cracks were everywhere. Factories churned out unusable goods. Farms delivered rotting harvests. Innovation stalled. By the 1970s, the USSR lagged decades behind in consumer technology. Rockets sure, refrigerators, not so much. Capitalism adapted. Regulations, deposit insurance, antitrust laws, social security, healthcare, unemployment benefits, it became survivable. By the 1980s, Western living standards soared. By 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, not to bombs or missiles, but to empty shelves, broken incentives, and an economy that couldn't keep up. By the 1990s and 2000s, capitalism evolved again. Finance boomed. Global supply chains stretched across continents, credit flowed like water, inequality surged. The 2008 financial crisis reminded the world, instability never really disappears, it just comes back wearing new clothes. Socialism reemerged too, but softer. Wealth taxes, universal healthcare, free education, stronger unions. Younger generations, squeezed by stagnant wages and rising housing costs, began asking, does capitalism still work, or just for the wealthy few? Today, almost every economy is a hybrid. Scandinavia mixes free markets with strong social protections. The US blends innovation with inequality and infrastructure decay. China blends private enterprise with state control. Every major economy is a mix of freedom and control, markets and state power, because human nature never disappears. Greed drives innovation until it becomes exploitation. Equality inspires unity until it becomes repression. Power concentrates, whether through wealth or politics. Ideology didn't fail. Reality forced compromise. The question isn't which system is better, it's which system can adapt, restrain power, correct mistakes, and reward productive behavior. Capitalism survived because it reinvented itself. From laissez-faire to the New Deal, to global finance, to tech capitalism. Socialism collapsed where it refused to evolve the Soviet Union, Mao's China, North Korea. But socialism thrived where it merged with markets, Scandinavia. Post-1978 China, Western Europe. Ideology didn't decide winners. Adaptation did. The 21st century presents new challenges: AI disruption, climate risk, demographic collapse, global debt. Market capitalism struggles with long-term planning. Socialist planning struggles with flexibility and innovation. Countries that thrive will be those that combine both: the creativity of markets with the resilience of public investment, freedom with stability, private innovation with public direction. No system works without guardrails. Society thrives when wealth or power is too concentrated, whether in billionaires or bureaucrats. History didn't choose capitalism or socialism. It chose whatever prevented collapse. And every generation must renegotiate that balance. The debate was never really about ideologies. It was about who controls the levers of power, capital, the state, the banks, the unions, corporations, the party, the regulators. Power never disappears. It just changes hands. If this gave you a new perspective on history, economics, and the systems that shape your life, hit subscribe, because the answers are in history, and I'll show you where to look.